This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. And Trump in his element yesterday, the rally in the Valley in Youngstown, Ohio. And, boy, it's a little bit of everything with Trump. Covered a lot of issues, some where he sounded very scripted. Maybe he's kind of memorized some modules of the speech on various topics. And other times he said he was more presidential than everyone except for Abraham Lincoln. Well, he played to the crowd. There was the customary braggadocio. There were protesters, too. And that's always a fun part.
They're pointing to a protester.
With a Russian flag.
If you don't point, nobody's even going to know he's here. Weak voice. Weak voice. Don't worry.
He was low energy like Jeb Bush.
Boy, he's a young one. He's going back home to mommy. Oh, is he in trouble? He's in trouble. He's in trouble. And I'll bet his mommy voted for us, right?
He just seems so comfortable. He loves it. He's a great campaigner.
Is there anything funnier than when Trump talks about somebody's mommy? It infantilizes them. I got to admit, I get a guilty pleasure from that. But the real purpose for Trump being out on the hustings is, to speak directly to the folks.
I'm here this evening to cut through the fake news filter and to speak straight to the American people. Fake news. Fake news. Boy, oh boy, what people. Is there any place that's more fun, more exciting, and safer than a Trump rally?
Yeah, I don't. Maybe a biker rally up in Sturgeon Bay. So here's the other thing that Trump does with these rallies, though, is he makes the kind of broad appeal on shared values. It's always interesting. Listen to this flourish.
This has been a difficult week for the media because I forced them to travel with us all around the country and spend time with tens of thousands of proud Americans who believe in defending our values, our culture, our borders, our civilization, and our great American way of life.
That's the Make America Great Again. I mean, that 25 seconds is kind of Make America Great Again encapsulated, right? Well, for more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our brother in sound, if you will, the sage of South Central, the host of the Larry Elder Show, which is coming to, which is here, and it's 7 to 9 p.m. That's going to be the time that you can hear Larry Elder on our station. And he was also out at the White House the other day for Salem Day at the White House, so maybe a little bit of an inside look. Pleased to have our friend Larry Elder back in the program. Larry, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Well, Dan and Amy, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, what about Trump and the rally yesterday before we get to Sessions and Obamacare and the like? Is getting out on the hustings the highest, best use of Trump's time?
I think so. It seems to energize him. I had no problem with the stuff that he said. I mean, obviously the stuff about Abraham Lincoln was hysterical. That's how he is. And of course, something really important happened yesterday, and that is that Mitch McConnell got that procedural bill done, and we're going to have a debate now on the floor of the Senate on repeal and replace. A lot of people thought that wasn't even going to happen. And remember Michael Moore after Trump got elected? I mean, this guy literally thought that Trump was going to serve no more than a few weeks, that ultimately he was going to resign, he was going to be bored, he was going to just voluntarily leave office. A number of sensible people, if you want to call Michael Moore sensible, seriously made that prediction. Now It's been 6 months. The man is still here, and he's not going anywhere.
But he overshadows himself. He had a great rally last night, but then, he had this standoff with his attorney general. So do you think Sessions is going to quit, or will he be fired, or how do you think it's going to end?
Amy, it seems to me if Sessions were going to quit, he would have quit by now. I don't know why he hasn't quit. It was pretty insulting what Donald Trump said to him. And this guy, Sessions, was the first senator to come out and support him. He really stuck out his neck for Donald Trump. And I thought Donald Trump should not have thrown him under the bus like that. That said, Sessions has not resigned. And I spoke with a number of officials yesterday, Dan and Amy, including the EPA guy, Pruitt. I spoke with the Secretary of Labor, Acosta. I spoke with the OMB guy, Mulvaney. All of them seemed positive. They seemed optimistic. This so-called beleaguered White House, I saw none of that. Now, of course, these guys were interviewing, and they weren't going to say, "Oh my God, we feel under siege, we feel beleaguered," but they certainly didn't feel that way. And nobody's going to care about any of this stuff. What he said about Jeff Sessions, what he said about Abraham Lincoln, comments he's made about the media. No one's going to care if he succeeds in getting us to 3 or 4% GDP, and I think that's going to happen.
Well, to that point, what do you think is the best play for Republicans in the Senate as they try to navigate something out of the Senate that they can then conference with the House on and move to the president's desk? Because a failure to do that really jeopardizes that prospect you have of 3 to 4% GDP growth.
I think you're right. I was speaking with the OMB guy, as I mentioned, and we talked about what would happen if he didn't do something about repeal and replace. And I said it would be akin to George Herbert Walker Bush breaking the no new taxes pledge. He broke his pledge. He got hammered with it. It's one of the reasons, probably the primary reason, that he got defeated for re-election. I think that if they don't do something, and the something could be something that will be Obamacare light, something that keeps some of the architecture of Obamacare. I think that's probably about the best we can expect. But something has to be put on his desk. He's got to sign something. Otherwise, I can just imagine the campaign slogan. They promised, they didn't deliver. It's now our time. That would be the line, and it will be a persuasive line.
So you were at the White House yesterday for Salem Day. Just explain what that was and why Dan and I weren't there.
Yeah, we know, right.
I said, where are Dan and Amy?
Yeah,
and they said
who?
The ticket must have gotten lost. The ticket must have gotten lost.
No, we were invited, but that's okay. Well, that's inside baseball. We don't want to discuss and air our dirty laundry. But how was it yesterday? And what did you learn?
It was a lot of fun. What I learned is that the White House briefing room is really, really tiny. Have you guys ever been there?
No.
Yeah, I have.
It looked like a phone booth.
Yeah.
Honestly, where Spicer and Huckabee Sanders stands and does the press conference. I thought it was a really kind of a big room. It really looks like a closet. These guys are really on top of each other. It's amazing.
That's going to make Scaramucci look bigger when he's at the podium.
That's right. So I took a picture of myself up there, pointing to somebody saying "next question," and I posted it on Twitter.
There you go.
I don't think it's suitable.
Yeah, you better be careful. That could be foreshadowing if this comm team doesn't work out.
Hey, you never know. If my phone rings, I shall answer.
Well, what about the new comms team? Speaking of somebody who's in the business of communicating and persuading, was it time to make that change and go with an unconventional pick, somebody that doesn't technically have a background in political comms like Scaramucci to run the comm shop?
I like Anthony Scaramucci. I like Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I also like Sean Spicer. I mean, these are kind of personnel changes that the president makes. I don't know what's going on behind closed doors. I don't know what it is about Sean that he didn't like, but these are the kind of personnel changes that happen. Let's remember, Obama went through 4 secretaries of defense, for crying out loud, within the first 5 years, and 2 of them wrote very scathing books, and one of them gave a scathing interview to a magazine, all talking about the chaotic and inconsistent foreign policy of Obama. That's a big deal, and nobody called that Obama White House beleaguered. This is all, inside baseball stuff. You got to figure out who you want. It's going to take a while. None of these people have any real political experience, so it's going to take a while. But I'm okay with the decision that they've made.
I wanted to get your take on this kind of larger issue. We played the clip of Trump talking about fighting for our culture, our civilization, this great American country of ours. And it really dovetails nicely with Walter Williams' latest column, Western Values Are Superior, which is a verboten statement in academia, certainly, maybe in other parts of the country these days as well. And he references Peter Beinart, who's one of the quote-unquote lefty thinkers, a piece that he wrote in the Atlantic magazine after Trump's speech in Poland. And Beinart saying Trump referred 10 times to the West and 5 times to our civilization, as he did last night in Youngstown. His white nationalist supporters will understand exactly what he means. So Walter Williams, who's, of course, an African-American gentleman, When Walter Williams says Western values are superior, is he telegraphing to white nationalist supporters, too?
Oh, for crying out loud. Western values are superior. I remember years ago after 9/11, the Italian prime minister made a similar comment, got hammered, and took it back. What are you talking about? Of course our values are superior. The idea of a government that is limited, the idea that there's a separation between church and state, between mosque and state, the idea that people are governed by the consent of the governed, these are new Western values that before the United States no one had ever seen before. Of course we have a superior culture. Look at the prosperity of Western countries versus the prosperity or lack thereof of many other countries with different cultures. The idea of rule of law, of orderly transition of power, as I said before, limited government, a federalist system. It is a wonderful evolution of human history. Let's remember, for the most part of human history, we've had domination, we've had tyranny, we've had governments that were monarchies. Of course, Western values are superior. I don't even know why this needs to be debated. Now,
yesterday you were in Washington, D.C. on a pretty significant day, the return of Senator John McCain to the Senate floor to take the vote. I don't know if you listened to his speech, but he talked about, don't be brainwashed by radio personalities, by television personalities. But he also said we're not the president's subordinates. Do you agree with that?
Of course I agree with that. And I've made criticisms about the president when I think the president needs to be criticized. For example, I don't like the idea of protectionism. I'm not keen on the idea of $1 trillion so-called stimulus program. I think that we had something like that under Obama, and if it's done by a Democrat, we call it pork. When it's done by a Republican, we call it investment. So there's some things that I'm not happy about, but for the most part, I think that we got what we hoped, and he ain't Hillary. We're not talking about another Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court. We're not talking about porous borders. We're not talking about a so-called comprehensive approach to immigration. He has delivered.
I've got to address the loyal opposition, the resistance, as it were, Larry. The Democrats came out yesterday with a whole new policy agenda. It's not a new deal. It's a better deal, and the better deal is to replace old-fashioned capitalism that has led to that has been a detriment to the consumer, according to Senate Minority Leader Pagliacci and the gang, and move towards a more government-centric, managed economy that is equitable and fair and just. Your reaction to the big new agenda that the Democrats rolled out yesterday?
Yeah, the big new agenda is the big old agenda: tax, spend, and regulate. They want a higher minimum wage. They want to do more about so-called inequality. They want to take money out of this pocket and put it into that pocket. Surprise, surprise. What they've done is double down. They've gone hard left, which is exactly what I thought they would do. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, this is the base of their party. And as long as that's their approach, they're going to lose elections. So I couldn't be happier that this is what they want to do. I hope they run Maxine Waters in 2020.
Speaking of, well, yeah, sure.
That would be interesting. That would be fun.
Oh, yeah, it should.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Go Maxine. Go Maxine. I'll contribute to her political action committee.
How about
send the check?
How about Sanders and Waters, or Waters and Sanders? How about
even better?
Yeah, that's even better.
Yeah, it's be like a Reese's peanut butter cup.
They might be able to carry Massachusetts, or at least some counties there.
Speaking of the Democrats, while there is the great desire by Democrats for all Trump and his family members and all Republicans to be arrested, they're actually arrests being affected on the other side. Debbie Wasserman Schultz's former IT aide, this rather enigmatic figure named Imran Awan, Pakistani-born IT aide for Wasserman Schultz, and that has been defended for months and months on end by Wasserman Schultz, by Representative Meeks from New York, saying that the FBI investigation into him was a result of Islamophobia. Well, he was arrested at the airport yesterday after his wife has fled the country a couple of months earlier, and it comes on the heels of the FBI seizing smashed hard drives from his home. What's going on there?
What could go wrong there? Yeah.
It sounds to me like somebody is hiding something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And since
we don't know what was on those hard drives, I mean, it could have been personal.
Since we're talking about, of course, yeah,
of course, family photos.
It was his yoga schedule. It was his Hello Kitty diary, like James Comey.
That's right.
So Wasserman Schultz, let's just reflect the record. She was the Democrat National Committee chairman when the hacking took place. Her IT aide is arrested by the FBI. Smashed hard drives are recovered. Doesn't this potentially have a lot of relevance to the overall Russian investigation and who really was engaged in illegality?
Just a little bit. Remember, Julian Assange has always insisted that he did not get the email from the DNC via any kind of Russian operative or a state actor. It might very well be the case that some of this stuff came from this guy or from Davey Wasserman's team. Who knows? Anyway, it is certainly something that ought to be investigated. It reminds me of the double standard that we've had before in the mid-'60s. Remember Chinagate? Those Asian business people that gave the DNC hundreds of thousands of dollars illegally. There was an investigation. The FBI headed up by Louis Freeh. And Louis Freeh told the then AG Janet Reno, if there is any reason for a special counsel, it is right now. She refused to appoint one. There was a guy named Charles Labella who headed up a task force to investigate this. He wrote Janet Reno a memo and said the same thing. You need to appoint an independent counsel. Nobody did. She refused, and pretty much the scandal went away. It's a kind of double standard and selective outrage and hypocrisy that ticks people off. And this is why so many people circling the wagons around Donald Trump and basically put their hands over their ears and eyes and mouth and say, I don't want to hear it. You guys didn't give a rip about Chinagate. You didn't give a rip about Hillary and the clear violation of the Espionage Act. You haven't investigated, to my knowledge, the Clinton Foundation. So I'm sorry. Our guy does something and you guys go ballistic. That's a double standard, and I'm not having it.
He is the sage of South Central, and you can hear his wisdom on these airwaves, 7 to 9 p.m. Host of the Larry Elder Show. Larry Elder, which is perfect that the show is named Larry Elder Show, and his name is Larry Elder. It works out seamlessly.
It makes it easy for me to remember.
Exactly. Larry, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Anytime, guys.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.